Croeso and welcome to the Cardiff Referee Society's meeting with Wales's top female referee, Cheryl Foster.
Like I said, thank you for the invite. Like you might have heard just then, sometimes I sort of question why to tell my, why I should tell my story a little bit, but hopefully you'll enjoy it, and obviously there'll be time to ask me any questions at the end. There are some videos on there as well, so again, apologies for any lagging that might happen. That's just the nature of the beast, I'm afraid. But hopefully you'll be able to see as much as possible. So I guess the sort of what I was asked to do was to be looking at my career. And for those that don't know me, I think it's safe to say that football has been part of my life for many, many years now. So I actually started as a female footballer. There I am in the red circle with the cap on. That I actually played for a boys team, and then I signed for Bangor City Ladies, who actually were in the English leagues. From there, I signed for my team. I actually supported Liverpool. I didn't sign them because I supported Liverpool. It was an opportunity to go to a club that I knew that had a chance of winning the league, which we did the first season that I joined them. So very proud moments throughout my career, especially when I scored against Everton. You can see there from the penalty, I was quite happy to score that one. Another big achievement of mine is obviously playing for Wales. I'll go into that a little bit more detail later on. But getting the opportunity to put that shirt on is a very, very proud moment. My time with Liverpool came to an end. And I signed for Doncaster Bells. So in the women's setup, it was a very famous name with very famous female footballers having played for Donny Bells. So it was again another nice privilege, and to wear a shirt that I knew that was well respected in the women's game. But of course, good things come to an end. I'll talk about a little bit of that in a second, how it changed and where and how the idea of becoming a referee came about. But there are many things that happen in my refereeing career that when I look back now, I think, wow, I can't believe that I was able to do those things. And actually not just playing for Wales and Liverpool, but refereeing has opened up a few doors for other avenues there, like commentary and being on TV. And there you go, you can see just the top of the tree there. One of my favourite moments is obviously refereeing in a World Cup warm-up game, Holland against Australia, and it was in front of just over 30,000 people. So just a couple of things there that in my journey from being a footballer to a FIFA referee and then on to the Welsh Premier League. So I just want to sort of touch on a few highlights playing football, because I think that has helped shape me as a referee. Playing for Wales, like I said, is a major achievement. Two highlights. People always ask me what my highlights are. One of them was being a captain on my 50th cap there. You can see on the biggest photo. Really proud achievement, to get to 50 caps in that era of football. It was pretty difficult. I'm looking at the picture now, and there's only one person that's still playing for Wales now, and that's Jess Fishlock. The top left-hand corner, you can see, again, playing for Wales, and that is actually against Germany. And again, that's a career highlight where I've played in front of, it was a capacity crowd of nearly 25,000 people. So it was just incredible. And finally, like I said, playing for Liverpool, being a Liverpool supporter was amazing. The bottom right-hand corner is me playing at Anfield, and I actually scored at the Kop end. So again, being a Liverpool fan, that was pretty cool as well. And one of my favourite moments is my dad's got MS, so he's in a wheelchair. So when I scored, one of the, as the ball dropped into the net, I could see my mum and dad right behind the goal and in the net with their arms up. So again, a pretty cool moment. So there's a couple of fun I thought was quite interesting. Not many people know this. When I played, I tended to get yellow cards for my mouth. It was never for tackles. I moaned quite a little bit, which, my colleagues, my former teammates laugh because I'm a referee. One of the things, I got red carded in the Champions League. for 2 yellow cards, and neither of them were for a tackle. One of them was apparently shouting at the referee, when I can't remember that, and another time, the second yellow card you can see there in the 90th minute is actually I ran to get the ball and put the ball down in the corner flag, jumped over it to get into position for a corner, and she thought I was time wasting, so cautioned me, and I was off, and I missed the second game of the Champions League group stage. And the other little maybe fun fact, I don't know, is that when, I don't know if you guys know about the Women's Super League that is over in England now. When I was still playing for Liverpool at the time that we went into the Super League, and a bit of a pub quiz question is, who's the first female to score in the Super League for Liverpool ladies? And luckily enough, I've got that little title there. So hopefully you enjoy this next one. Without sounding really silly, every time I watch it, I smile. It was the first game of the Super League, so the opening game of the Super League. It was against our rivals, Everton, and it was an equalising goal. They'd scored in the first half, and we'd equalise, and it ended up being 3-3. So quite a ding-dong game. So that's pretty cool. So moving on to sort of refereeing, I'll sort of explain what happened a little bit. So I was away playing for Wales. I was in Switzerland, and I was sat on a table with the counsellors. So a number of counsellors used to come away with every game that you played. So a gentleman called Cliff, who you may know from North East Wales, he said to all of us who were there with him, saying, "Oh, have any of you thought about doing refereeing when you stop playing?" And I think every single one of us laughed and said, "That's not going to happen." But I suppose in a way, looking back, it definitely sort of stuck in my mind that when I was coming to the end of my career, that was like sort of 7 years before I finished playing. So when I was coming to the end of my career, I was finishing my contract with Doncaster Bells. I was thinking about what I wanted to do next. So I actually contacted the Welsh FA, 2 different people. One was to ask about coaching courses, because I'd done it previous years, and see if I can sort of just do a refresher and then maybe do the B license on to the A. I really liked coaching. I did it quite often when I was younger. And the other one was to contact a certain Mr. Roger Gifford, who contacted me back straight away saying, "Oh, there's a course." And it was in October 2013, and I'd passed the difficult exam 8 or 9 weeks later, and then I found myself on the line as an assistant referee out Saltney. I don't know if anyone knows Saltney Ground, but its changing rooms are on one side of the road. You had to clamber over some steps and a bridge to get on the other side. And I remember my 2 people came to watch me, a lot of like mentors, I suppose. And the first thing 2 things they said to me, they went, "Cheryl, stand closer to the line," because I'd obviously withdrew away from the line because I was panicking so much. And the second thing was, "Cheryl, get the flag in your other hand." So, it was a bit of a shock to the system starting, but obviously something that it didn't put me off. In that same sort of year, I suppose I did half a season, and in that half a season, I was asked to be an assistant in the Women's Welsh Cup final in 2014. So incredible! Like in 4 or 5 months, I was doing that. You can see there some of the things that I've managed to do, and I'm going to be explaining a few things about that in a little bit more detail now. So the pathway for me has been sort of, like I said, an assistant on the, I'm trying to think, it'll be the Welsh National League, that game. So I was an assistant there. The following year, I was doing reserve and Colts, so being in the middle on my own in the men's game, which was a massive wake-up call. No assistants, and players that were a little bit difficult. I'll put it that way. But it was good, tough training. And then obviously that helped me to referee in the Welsh National League. And then between the Welsh National League and the Cymru Alliance, I was an assistant. I remember being being the assistant to Martin Roberts, who is now the FIFA assistant in the Welsh Premier League. So everyone works with each other and then finds their own way. And it's crazy when you look back at the last 6 years who I've worked with and how now I'm sort of the referee and they're the assistant, things like that. From the Cymru Alliance, I think I did 2 or 3 years, and then I got promoted to Welsh Premier League. So that's the men's pathway. The women's have been a little bit different because obviously there's not as many leagues to sort of referee in. I was, like I said, an assistant in the first season, and after that I was only ever a referee in the women's setup. So in the men's setup, it wasn't until probably when they told us to sort of make a choice of whether you want to be a specialist assistant or referee. That was 3 years ago. So I was doing both in the men's setup until I got into the Welsh Prem. But for the women's, like I said, I did probably half a season as assistant, and then I was just a referee and refereeing many sort of women's league games. So I don't know if any of you guys have seen this video, which is a little bit of to stop me from talking and for you to see a little bit of me talking, but on a video, a little bit about my lifelong passion. It talks again a little bit about my playing career, but also getting into refereeing. I originally played for a boys team. I played for a boys team in Conway. It went from there, really. I was at Liverpool for nearly 10 years, and then I made my senior debut at the age of 17 against Ireland. And then I was fortunate enough to play 63 caps. You know, it's a good career. I was pleased with what I contributed to the Welsh team. Everyone thought I was going to be a coach or a manager because that's the way I thought about the game. I was a big thinker about the game. Originally, I missed playing quite badly, but in my mindset, I was still on the pitch. I was still involved in it. So, you know, there is a good comparison now between how I used to play and now as a referee. It's just that buzz of being on the pitch and taking part in such a great game. I think it's important that the women understand that once your career ends as a player, whatever the age, whether you're 16, 26, 36, you know, there is an opportunity there to stay in the game, to stay in the sport after you've hung up your boots. Women's football in Wales is really pushing on, and I'm fortunate and I'm privileged to have played it, and I'm fortunate and privileged to carry on in the role that I'm playing at the moment. So there's a number of things there that I forgot even just to mention about, you know, the fact that I played for Wales for 63 times, you know, just things like that I just forget about, and maybe I should pay more attention when I'm doing my speaking to sort of highlight those things. But just from the pictures there, you can see just a little bit of my journey working with, that was in the left-hand corner, that's the Cymru Alliance Cup. And it was the first time ever that an all-female team was refereeing it. And again, when I'm looking at back at these pictures, I'm thinking, wow, that's an achievement. Laura there on the right-hand side actually got promoted to assisting on the Welsh Premier League. She's pregnant now, so she's put a pause to her career a little bit. But you know, all those things there, you know, I look back and I just think, you know, I've forgotten about, if I'm honest with you, but you know, refereeing has been like a roller coaster in terms of everything that I've done, but it's got me to where I am now. And that left hand corner one there is where I'm at. My first ever game on the Welsh Premier League was an assistant, and I was at TNS. So for 45 minutes, I was just running up and down like a headless chicken, and then the second half I was just cruising at on the halfway line. That's what I remember about it. I think that's all I can do. Talk about that one. I'm sure something can come back to me later on. So I think obviously one of the career highlight when as a referee is getting the FIFA badge. I had a phone call in 2015 to say that I'd been nominated and that nomination had been accepted. So I went onto the FIFA list in 2016, and what basically that means is that you go to an introductory course. It was in Cyprus that year, and part of that course is actually the elite referees are always there. So unfortunately our winter course this year has been cancelled, being an elite referee, but the newbies come and join you, and Tom, who's just got the new badge, he would have been there. So it's a shame that it's not happening this year, but within the course it's quite intense. It's 4 days of non-stop seminars. There's a laws of the game test. They were testing your fitness. Really intense, and I was shattered coming home from it. That was the year that Ryan Stewart also got the badge as well. After the course, I was able to get a under-17 tournament, and that happened in Italy. They're the teams that were in the tournament, and typical of me, my first ever FIFA game ended up with 1 red card and a penalty, because I said I was a full official for the first game. I was like, I bet you my first game I've got a red card, or I've got a dog show, or I've got a massive big decision to make. And it's quite a funny story with that penalty, because it was a handball on the line, and I look back and I think, so naive and so inexperienced, but that situation gave me so much experience, is that someone shot at goal and the hand, I could clearly see the arm come out and it hit it. And then because of the chaos, and what it's like in a penalty, the chaos that comes from there, people shouting and everything else, I'm first game ever panicking, and I lose the player. So I'm like, oh God, who's it hit? I know it's a red card. No one else can help me because the other side's the assistant. And luckily enough, it's funny now when I think back. Luckily enough, the girl that it struck the arm started crying. And I'm, it's under 17. She's probably only about 15 or 16. She started crying. It's like, you, off you go. So it's quite a funny story, thinking back to it now. So part of my journey is that I obviously got onto the FIFA list in 2016, and that's called Category 3. There are 4 categories, both in male and female. After a year, which is incredible, I got a promotion to Category 2. Obviously, that's all dependent on your marks when you're refereeing the mini tournaments, what the observers are saying about you. I do think a big thing that has helped me is that I did play, and everyone knew that. They do their homework before you go on to mini tournaments. They find out as much about you as they can. So all the observers knew I used to play. And the other thing is being English speaking. It's a massive benefit. And like you can see from that timeline, just in the summer 2020, I've worked all the way up to being on the elite category. Again, quite an achievement in a short space of time. Some people could say that it's too quick. So I probably agree with some of them at times when I make a mistake. But at the same time, I think that, going back, the fact that I had such a big playing career internationally and domestically, I think has helped for that pathway to happen. So I suppose in a way it's looking at now the expectations on me as a referee. Even just recently, that was only in December just gone. It was a second leg of a Champions League game, and the first leg made it quite interesting. Zurich went all out for it, and even just based on sort of analysis of that game, it's ridiculous that on average it was about 246 decisions I had to make, whether it's a foul or not foul, goal or not goal. I disallowed a goal for a push on a goalkeeper. I had a penalty shout, all sorts of things. But you know, it's what is expected of you as an elite referee, that you're, you know, you've got all those decisions to make, and obviously you're making the right decision. Fitness expectations is totally changed from the beginning. I remember when I got the call to do the FIFA, to be a FIFA referee, the first thing I did was I actually I was part of Total Fitness, and they had this deal going on for PTs, and I actually signed up to a PT because the demand of fitness from a playing's perspective, especially because I was a centre forward, so you know I was hanging around on the shoulder of the last defender, and then doing some sprints. Refereeing fitness is you're like a box-to-box midfield, and it was a shock to the system. You know, my training for say the first 35 years of my life is totally different to what I do now, and you can see me there absolutely blowing from another HI session on a boggy pitch, because that's all we've got available to us at the moment. But fitness expectations has increased every year. Now being an elite referee, it's ridiculous. It's like Big Brother. Everything that you do, I literally just after school, because I'm a teacher, after school I went to pick up a parcel, and in that parcel is a GPS tracker, because that's what they've sent us. So it's just, you know, everything, you know, the standards of refereeing has increased, and that means in the women's side as well. So like you can see on those two screens, those two sessions there will be scrutinised by my fitness coach. And again, the diary has to be filled in. You have to say what you're doing and what type of training. They then grade your training, so they actually look at whether is there enough variation, because they don't want a referee that just runs all the time because of you know, for injury prevention. They want to see injury prevention sessions in there. They want to see that you do power and strength training. So like I said, the expectations are massive at the moment, being an elite referee, but two, there are two big tournaments that are coming up, which that's why you're getting scrutinised so much. So I don't know if you know that the Women's Euro should have been this summer. They got postponed back, so they're next year in England, and then you've got the World Cup in 2023. So there's, like I said, there's massive highlights, and the only reason I've got there is because of, you know, the matching the expectations on the pitch, which is the mark, and obviously the fitness and attending courses, etc. So a couple of highlights there. You know, I've been on Core. That's with Rebecca Welsh, who's the English FIFA referee. I've been to two tournaments, under 19 final tournaments. One, you know, being in Switzerland and refereeing in 40-degree heat is not something that I enjoyed, but it was a good experience. And then the two World Cup warm-up games that I did, one in Scotland, you know, they played I'm trying to think of the main ground now. It's Hampden Park, isn't it? Yeah, Hampden Park, sorry. Yeah, I had a mind freeze then. And for them, that was a record crowd, you know, to see them off before the World Cup. And like I mentioned before, one of my career highlights is refereeing the Netherlands, you know, in front of 30,000 people. So playing in front of 25, refereeing in front of 30, obviously it's just, the noise is ridiculous. But once the whistle goes, I remember when I played for Wales against Germany, didn't hear them whatsoever. And I can honestly say it was the same for that game when I refereed in front of them. The only time I did hear it is that Kerry, I don't know if you know Kerry Williams, is my assistant, FIFA assistant. She's from Swansea. And she made a couple of decisions for an offside, which the crowd did not agree with. And everyone, when my whistle went about to go for the offside, the boos was incredible. But all I thought was, well, it's her, it's not towards me. That's why I'm all right. But yeah, that was quite good as well. You know, I've had some major career highlights, but I've had some tough times too. I know a lot of questions I get asked is about being a female. You may ask someone might ask that later on. I can honestly say I've not really had that many problems being a female referee in a man's world. But what I will say is that as you get higher up, the scrutiny gets bigger and bigger. And one of the hardest games I had was, just over a year ago. It was on Boxing Day. It was a live game. It was, you can see there, Carnarvon against Bala. Anyone that knows Carnarvon, they always get a massive crowd anyway, never mind Boxing Day. It was, a good number of people there. Bala are a tough team, with Colin on the side and the players with Chris Venables, etc. And it's definitely a career low for me, this game, because I actually had quite a good game, but unfortunately there were about 3 decisions that they were big decisions, and with all the cameras about, you got to feel for the English boys that have that all the time, 20, 30 cameras per game, seeing it from different angles, and you're meant to see it. Obviously, they get a little bit more help now with VAR, supposedly, but live games mean more cameras, and something that I felt was quite an easy decision. And when I saw it back, I got it horribly wrong. So hopefully this works. Apologies if it lags. You may have seen it and you may have tutted when you watched it last year. So I'll just pause it there just so hopefully it catches up a little bit. Oops. Try again.
Allan at y cefnwr de. Ac yn ara bach, mae'r taclo mynd yn fwy.
So for me, looking back, just sat chilled. I can see that actually the foot is raised a little bit higher now. But I can honestly say, as a referee at that point and in that moment, I didn't see it that high. And if you look at it, player reaction, the player that actually got tackled, nothing. He just looked at me, Brockwell. Nathan had a little bit of a moan, but he always does because he's captain. But I was confident. I gave the yellow card, not a problem, happy days. But then, obviously, later on, after the game, you get to see it from different angles. And anyone that did watch the game, Colin had a few things to say about me after the game. I think that Sean did as well. Actually, I know Sean very, very well because he used to coach me. So, it's tough. I suppose after that game, I sort of questioned myself whether I wanted to carry on refereeing, because I couldn't believe how down I felt about after that game. And actually, the next game I came off it as a referee, and I went as 4th official. And in that month, I did a couple of courses, so I weren't available for games. And then lockdown came in. And actually, when the season restarted, I hadn't refereed a Welsh Premier game since then. So the first game of the season was actually at Carnarvon, so typical Phil. Whacked me back in the same place that I absolutely made a mess of. And I think it was about close to 9 months, 10 months, I hadn't refereed a Welsh Premier game because of coronavirus, the lockdown, etc. And my last game was that. So psychologically, I struggled, and not because it was like, it was just because of the manner of how I got it wrong, and the scrutiny afterwards. But that is part and parcel of refereeing, and I've definitely had to learn that the hard way. And hopefully,
I think Mike had a question.
All right, cool. Sorry.
Yeah, Mike.
All right, well, thank you.
Good,
Don't ask me anything about that game. I've only just got over it.
Can you? Yeah, I just want to. Yeah. Can you just go back to the first clip on that one? Can you just go back to it?
Yeah.
Just as a little teaching point, really, for the guys watching this. Just before. Right. Go back to the. see if you can pause it just as he makes the tackle, or let's say a tackle, as he makes a foul. Right. Obviously, your angle there, you're looking through the player there, aren't you?
Yeah.
Now, the assistant, when you played that the first time, I didn't watch the tackle. I was obviously, because it was a misread card, I was watching the assistant, and there was not one. I don't know what was said over the com. We on comms there, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I don't know what was said over the comms. Did he identify the high challenge? Because there was no indication of any like sort of raised flag there from Connor.
I'll be honest. I'm only an honest referee. I think I should have seen this anyway. The communication was good decision. I can only say, because at the end of the day, we haven't got a camera from his angle. We've got a camera. The next one is behind the goal. You can clearly see it's a red card. Maybe from his angle, because if you look at this one now, actually, you can see what I thought I saw was it was more foot on foot. That's what I think I've seen. And maybe from behind there, because he's looking at it the other way, again, he's not seen that foot up like that. What I've seen is the second part to it, haven't I? I've not seen that because, again, like you said, I'm looking through something. So the main coaching point I've got there for myself is that I actually have got a good view in terms of not being too close to it, but mainly I'm quite static in my movement. I'm walking. I'm not like where you know that there's potential danger. As soon as I saw Venables miscontrol it, I should have been a little bit. Even if I'd moved slightly left, I would have seen it.
Yeah, maybe.
But I can only be honest. The communication was good decision when I gave the yellow card.
Yeah, it was more of a sort of. I'm thinking of as myself now when I referee with comms. Before that, like you say, because when that loose loose touch, that's what's created it. Is that bad first touch?
Yeah.
I always say to the assistants, if that ball's coming towards you, I want you identify to me if it's a high foot or if it's a high contact, because sometimes as a referee, you're looking through the play and you can't actually see the sort of the level of the contact. But like you say, you thought it was foot on foot, and Connor probably did as well. So
yeah, no, I agree with that, and I've you can imagine how many times I've watched this game now.
But the best thing is you went back into the fire.
Yeah, well, that's Phil's fault because he told me to go back to Canarna.
Absolutely, and that is the best way to do it.
Yeah, probably. Looking back,
otherwise, you would have brewed on it for even longer.
Yeah, no, and I'm not trying to be dramatic about it. It's just because of the manner of getting that decision wrong. I don't know if you heard the clip okay before, but the way I played, I analysed everything as a player, and I think that as a referee, it's actually been my downfall, my personality, because there are some things that you just can't see, and you've just got to go and just put your hands up and say, especially in our leagues, looking back to Cymru Lions, all those things, some things you just can't see.
Yeah.
But I kick myself just because of the way I am. But I remember I refereed at Guilsfield a few years before this, and as there was a penalty decision, it was like that two players crossed my line of vision like that, and I think I did have comms because I've had comms for a number of years because I was lucky enough from being FIFA, they gave me the communication kit, so I did have comms, but the assistant didn't tell me anything. Players are in front of me like that, and luckily there's a player on my shoulder because everyone's going mental. It was obviously a penalty. Players were going mental, and he went, "She couldn't have seen it because you two were in the way," and that made me smile. But at the same time, I was kicking myself that I wasn't, why did they have to cross at that point, at that, all those things. But it was a difficult one to take because it was a tough game physically and mentally, that one.
There's one more now, Cheryl. When did you see the clip back?
I'm not. Do you know what? I'm probably the opposite. Even though I'm firmly about analysing performances, is that I'm very different to the other boys. I can go in at half time with the boys, and they've already got like 10 videos from other people watching it, giving them,
Yeah.
oh, that was a good decision. That during the game, I'm not in. I just need to just
Yeah.
focus on that. I actually watched that. The following day because I went to go and watch a game. So I live in Chester. So I actually went to watch the following day to Airbus. So Airbus was in the league at the time. And I'm trying to think of his name. Jamie, who played for Carnarvon, midfielder. Crowther. So he was actually at the game, this Airbus game, and he said to me, he said, why didn't you give a red card? I said, what for? Like, I didn't even think of this clip, didn't even think of this situation because I was so sure. He said, I'm telling you now, Venables should have been sent off because he actually, if you look at that clip now, can you see where Connor is?
Yeah.
And if you look to the right, there's two people. Look to the right again. Jamie's one of those two. And he said, I'm telling you now, Cheryl, it's a red card. So what did I do? I went to it because we got access to it, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But
I've got a question from Sean.
yeah.
Just some commentary, really. It's a difficult one. If you look at positioning there, you're actually kind of pushing towards your assistant anyway in the first place from your original position that was displayed. Now, subconsciously, that's probably going to hold you back from going too close to your assistant, and we're probably all like that.
Yeah.
You mentioned going left. Well, the red player alongside you probably prevent you doing that, even if you'd have a job getting in front of him, and you run the risk of going too close.
100%.
So it just looks like one of those that's just really awkward. If you dropped off, you'd just be seeing the back of the red player. So I think sometimes, you've got these difficult situations where how are you going to see it anyway?
Yeah.
And looking at that there, maybe it's just one of those where we're not going to see it.
Yeah, and actually, if you look at the next clip of this one here, one of the best parts is that the only place I could have been to actually seen it perfectly was the camera behind the goal. And like you say, sometimes I've just got to accept that that's the camera from behind the goal. And I suppose in a way, a learning curve is, a lot of people say, oh, it's player reaction. People say player reaction to you all the time, don't they? And a couple of shouts. There's nothing else. And even Venables was looking at me as if, why are you even booking me? And again, all those things play into your mind. I go back to that slide when I was saying about 246 decisions. Trust me, I think with that game, I think that was doubled because it was chaotic. It was so many things was going on. I know that one of my things, it's as a referee to sort of ignore decisions I've not made or have made and then focus on the next one was pretty difficult in this game. It was a massive learning curve.
Yeah, the only other position I would say that the way you would see it completely is on the touchline, dead in line with it, and you're never ever going to be there. I'd say it's just one of those, I think.
They do tell me to get left more often, but in that case, it would have been more right, wouldn't it?
Mm.
One of my coaching points is always more left, Cheryl, more left. Am I right to move on? Thank you for those questions, but I was, it's quite difficult to watch it back. I was unsure whether to watch it or not. So I suppose in a way it sort of comes back to that question of why do we have a referee? And I suppose at that point, I'll be honest with you, my low point is that I was questioning whether I should do it or not. And again, I'll be honest with you, this year it's been difficult for everyone. I'm a teacher, so it's been difficult that way. It's been difficult to, like when I got the promotion to elite, I was questioning that because I was like, well, I've had 6 months of not doing anything really. And it's been quite difficult to motivate myself even now. But the main thing is that we have to go back to is that why do we have a referee? Because at the end of the day, that game wouldn't be played without one. And And I wish I knew and understood that more when I was a player. Instead of giving them a lot of verbals, I wish I understood that a bit more, that, you know, how difficult a referee's job is. And I do think that, you know, as well as being a former player, I think being a teacher as well has all helped and mould me becoming a referee, and definitely it's developed, you know, further some life skills. So it's been a massive learning curve in the last 4 or 5 years, and it's changed me, I'd say, compared to when I was a player. The one thing I want to sort of touch on is the what refereeing has actually done. You know, fair enough, I'm a former international player. They can say 63 caps, blah blah. But the fact now that you've got sort of 2 things to your boat, where, you know, former international player and now a FIFA referee, you know, created these opportunities to commentate for BBC Wales, to be on TV, etc. Now UEFA pulled the plug on it. I'd say maybe 2 years ago. I think maybe 2.5 years ago, because obviously it was conflict of interest, and they wanted me just to focus on the refereeing. So for now, that's been put on the back burner, but I'm looking forward to already that when I finish refereeing, that I can do that again, because I do really enjoy watching games, analysing games, and then giving an opinion on that. So it's always been something that I've enjoyed. Another thing that's been a highlight, and maybe because of me being a former player, is that I was asked to become part of IFAB. You know, it's surreal to even to be asked. It was surreal to go to the first meeting that I went to. I went into this conference room, looked to see where my name tag is, and saw that my name tag was next to Luis Figo, and I was just like, oh, wow. You know, these opportunities that have come to me has been incredible. And one of my highlights from that meeting is I was asked something about, you know, how when goalkeepers come off the line, about being cautioned. So obviously the laws changed based on that meeting. What we were saying is it's too harsh, so they changed it to a verbal warning, and then a caution. But I remember saying something, and I sat back, and Luis Figo pressed the button to press it, you know, speaking to the mic, and was like, yes, I agree with what Cheryl just said. And I stupidly, but I just sort of pressed the button again and said, well, if Luis Figo agrees with me, that's my career done. And sort of sat back, and they're all laughing, all these top dogs like Kalina and Roberto Ray was there, you know, all these top people from all different areas of the world, laughing because I've made a joke that because Luis Figo agreed with me, that was it, I was done. So yeah, fabulous experience so far. I've only done 1 meeting in person and another meeting on Zoom because of the current climate. But again, looking forward to what other things that brings, and being part of, I'm not saying I make a decision on the laws of the game, but it's nice to be part of the process of how they make a decision. So my first meeting is when they first talked about concussion substitutes, and the Zoom meeting was to clarify what we all thought about concussion substitutes. And then now everyone's saying that it's going to be brought into all the leagues. I know that the Premiership is saying that they're going to start bringing that in. So fascinating insight to be part of the IFAB panel. And then a little bit about what's next. So you can see there the letter that I received recently, and I suppose that's renewed my my enthusiasm, my motivation at the moment, is to be sort of shortlisted for the FIFA World Cup in 2023 in Australia and New Zealand. What does that mean? Well, that just means more tracking. Like I said, my GPS arrived this morning from FIFA. It's logging into what's called Ref Assist to add in all the courses that I do, all the meetings that I go on, all the tests that I do, everything. It's just Big Brother. But it's obviously fascinating and obviously a privilege to be shortlisted. But it means nothing for now until until those numbers go down. If I can do everything I can to make sure I'm in with a chance, I'll do that. If I don't make it, then it's still been an honour to sort of be shortlisted for a major tournament. I suppose the last thing I've got is basically just advice, really. I'm not saying that I'm the oracle, I know things, but what I do know is I've only got where I've got to because I've done all the basics. I've attended meetings, done webinars, done things like this, listened to other people. I constantly speak to more experienced referees than me. I think Nick Pratt has got me on his, the quick, you press the number and it's straight to me. I think I speak to him more than sometimes his own wife. Lee has been a mentor towards me, and just many courses, and taking something from that all the time. And the mini tournaments, definitely massive learning curves, because you're away for 10 days and you're watching clips, you're watching your own games, you're listening to these observers that know what they're talking about, and it's just actually it's when you're told something is about going. It's not being defensive. There's a learning curve for everything, and I know with the IFAB app, it's brilliant because there's questions, laws of the game questions all the time. So yeah, just a little bit of advice there. I won't do that, and I'll just say, is there any questions that has anyone got that I can try and answer or try and make interesting?
Yes, well, thank you, Cheryl. That's excellent. Got a few questions in the chat. First question from Sean: do you still get playing impulses or thoughts during matches that you're refereeing?
Do I get what? Sorry.
Do you get any like impulses to go back and play when you?
Oh yeah, all the time. All the time.
Yeah, I didn't mean too much of that. I mean, probably not at the very highest level that you're doing, but certainly sometimes I still do actually. If a ball comes fairly close to my head, like my instinct, my urge would be to stick my nut on it. But I do contain myself, but it's still there. Or sometimes if someone's pulling the trigger or something, you might feel your leg twitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think because I'm the only female, I suppose people sort of get to sort of know that I used to play. They know I play, or used to play, sorry. And it depends on the player, but you can have a little bit of banter with them and say, well, I could have scored that, and I think about, I had a question yesterday actually from a member of staff saying, do you ever watch women's football now and think, God, I wish I was 20 years younger? I was like, yeah. There's been a number of interviews that I've done and people have said, oh, obviously I big up refereeing a lot now, because I think that one of my roles is to be a role model to younger people, to especially younger females, to take up the whistle. But if a question came to me and said, right, I've got a time machine here, you can go back to being 26, would you pick up refereeing so you could start early and maybe get to a tournament earlier, or would you be a player again? I'd be a player, and there's no sort of dissing refereeing. It's I'm enjoying refereeing because I've had that career as a player, so I'd do that again.
You must benefit a lot from the tactical perception as well, because if you can see the way a team's playing and the way they might need to change based on the game, then you're prepared for it if it does come around, say, second half or something.
Yeah, and like 100%. And there has been some observers in the past that have said, oh, but you're not moving here and you're not. I said, but there's no need to, because that's how they're playing. Obviously, there's a juggling act to that, because it could fail. Their move could fail. The way that they want to pass the ball could fail, and there's a counter attack, and then I'm out of position. But there are times that, having played football and been coached by some very, very good coaches in the past, is that, and like I said, I'd done my coaching badges, so tactically and that side of it, has really benefited me as a referee.
And
thanks. I better let some of the others get in.
I've got a question linked.
Thanks, Sean.
What was the most difficult transition from a player to a referee? Like when you're, say, for instance, like a tackle, thinking, oh, that's a good challenge, but then from a refereing point of view, you're thinking, well, actually.
Oh, 100%. I've got a few KMIs now because I've gone, oh, that's a great tackle, and of course, all it is a caution, and then, based on the laws of the game and the way that the game is actually changing,
Yeah.
And I often say to players as I'm refereeing, I'm saying, back in the day, yeah, great challenge, but that's a yellow card now. You can't do that now. And that, I suppose that's what I miss as well, being a former player. I think, oh, that's a bit harsh. But I think my first year in the Welsh Prem is that there was I was at Llandudno, hell of a challenge, and I gave a caution. Observer, brilliant, yeah, that's a strong challenge, but when you then freeze frame and all those things that people now do as the opportunity to do, and it's a red card. But yeah, I think that's probably one of the hardest things. And the other thing is, Lee always says to me, stop thinking like a player. Stop thinking like a player.
Yeah.
So yeah, that probably is one of the hardest things, the transition from, and I still struggle with it now, probably.
And linked to that then, these questions a bit getting pick on your toes. Do you have to think differently when you're refereeing in Wales compared with when you put on a UEFA game?
Yeah, massively. You, at the end of the day, you've got to referee the game that's in front of you. So when you are refereeing a men's Welsh Prem game, not that you can let things go, of course you can't, but they just want to play, and some of those things that in Europe you can't do, where you could get away with maybe speaking to a player in the Welsh Prem, it's a nailed on yellow card. So yeah, you do have to change the way you referee domestically to refereeing, for a UEFA game. And also you've got to protect yourself in UEFA. You've got to make sure that if it's a yellow card, it's a yellow card. If it's a red card, never sort of hide away from that, because these marks are kept obviously in a database, and then that's why people get promoted or not. And fortunately for me, I think because I refereed the men's league, is that when I've gone into the women's league, women's games, I've been okay, because I've already suffered probably more, more shouting, more questions, more decisions, more often. So actually, when the decisions are made in the female, no offense to the female game, but it is slightly slower. There is fewer decisions to make. Does that make sense? So because it's like mental in the men's game, that when I go to the women's game, it's easier to deal with because it's fewer.
Yeah,
that's
mental. I don't want to sound like I'm not slating the women's game, because obviously I played it, but it's just a different game.
Yeah, that's right.
Refereeing in men's football has definitely helped me massively in the women's game.
Yeah, I was going to say that like with the women's game, there's more, say, close contact football.
Yeah.
And
which is again same thing, because often I get told by observers that they say to me, you can tell you're a British referee, because in women's football with the nudges and stuff like that, I'm just like, oh, get on with it. And I don't think I'm like that, because it's not just because I referee men's football in Wales. I think it's because as a female, I'm like, oh, just get on with it. Come on, let's go. So yeah, it's slightly different. There's a little different physicality to it. You don't really see those types of challenges that you've just seen from Chris Venables there. You don't really see them. But that's not to say, they don't happen. I'm just fortunate that I've probably not had them in my games.
Another question. We're running out of time. Okay. I'm not sure if you answered this one. What's the hardest and easiest part of refereeing for you? There was another one. Your favourite Welsh Prem ground?
Do you know what? I absolutely know. I've probably contradicted myself a lot here, because I've had a low point at that ground, but I do love refereeing at Carnarvon, mainly because the numbers of people that they get there, and the atmosphere is incredible. When especially when Sean was manager, the atmosphere, a night match would be brilliant. It's so good. Yeah, probably that one.
And are there any managers that you
they might see it. Any managers what? Sorry.
Any managers that you can't manage, or because of your background, that you've got a better relationship, and you've got mutual respect, say?
Yeah.
Sorry, Cheryl.
What? It's all right. I think actually it's a good question. I will honestly say that the difficult managers that we all know who they are in the Welsh Prem are actually very, very good with me when I'm fourth official. Very respectful. At the end of the day, I accept emotion. Of course, you know, it's an emotional game, but they are very good. And I'm not saying they might do it because I'm a female, I don't know. I think there is a little bit of respect. Hopefully there is, not just because of my refereeing ability, but obviously my playing career as well. But that can soon change when you're on the pitch as a referee and they're questioning every decision you make. Yeah, there are some characters, but I think we all know who those characters are.
What is one of your most memorable pieces of advice given to you by an observer or a coach?
Move.
Stop.
There's a my UEFA manager is called Dagmar, and the style of refereeing's changed. So, you know, it's quite difficult actually when at times it's been quite difficult to referee in Wales because some observers have been like the old stay left, you know, keep left, all that, you know, wide left, and that's gone. You know, it's probably the transition between domestic and international is changing your style of refereeing a touch, because when you referee abroad, they want you to be what they call is because her name's Dagmar, it's Daggy's cone, and it's to the right of the penalty arc. And you know, when players are there, they don't want you the other side where it used to be wide left all the time. They want you to be, and they always say it to you, the best bit of advice is be in the best position to make the best decision.
Brilliant. And the last question before we wrap up, this is from John. Women's football seems to be more sporting and more respect for officials. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said right at the beginning, I probably got all my cautions were for my mouth. So maybe I'm not the best person to say it, but they're more sporting in terms of they're more honest with their tackling, and saying sorry to each other, you know, like, oh, sorry about that. And but they still, at the end of the day, it's a game of football, you know, and if they can try and convince you that it's a penalty when it's not, or, you know, anything, they'll still do it because they're competitive. But in terms of the way they are, I think, yeah, but at the same time, I've got to sort of stick up for few men folk that there are some very nice players out there that, you know, regardless, speak to you in a nice manner. And you know, like I said, with that guy that was, leave her alone, she couldn't see it, you two are in the way, you know, things like that. There are some of them about as well. So, but yeah, the women's game, it tends to be a little bit more sporting, but at the same time, there's still a few out there like my former self that wasn't.
Brilliant. I think that that's it for the questions, and that's it for our time. You know, once again, I'd like to thank you for you know, giving up your time and you know, talking about your career, which is, you know, amazing experiences that you've had. And you know, I think that the whole of Wales will be backing you to be in Australia, New Zealand in 2 years' time, or a year and a half's time. But yeah, thank you again, Cheryl.
No problem. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the easy questions.
And
I'll say that's to Sean. Sean had a few good ones.
Yeah. Yeah, brilliant.
No, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks all, Cheryl.
Bye, Cheryl.
All the best.
Okay, thanks. Bye.